Eli had never expected an ordinary morning in the orbital colony to turn into something extraordinary. He stood in the small studio he had built in one corner of his apartment module, carefully adjusting his tools on a magnetic tray. The walls were lined with sketches, blueprints, and samples of his tattoos, human artistry designed for interstellar clients. He had always loved the mixture of creativity and precision that his craft demanded. Every line, every curve had to carry meaning, not just beauty, yet today felt different. There was a tension in the air, a subtle electric hum that made him glance out the window at the bustling station. The orbital colony was alive with activity. Ships of various shapes and sizes glided silently past the glass windows, some carrying traders, others diplomats from distant worlds. Eli had grown used to the presence of aliens. Many species visited the colony, drawn to its reputation as a hub of knowledge and culture. Some were imposing, with towering forms and sharp features. Others were small, delicate, almost ethereal. Yet none had ever approached him directly, not in the way that today's visitor would. He heard a soft chime from the docking bay alert system. Eli wiped his hands on a cloth and walked toward the window. Outside, a ship unlike any he had seen before rotated slowly into view. Its surface shimmered, reflecting light like liquid metal. The craft was sleek, elegant, designed for speed and diplomacy rather than cargo. A hush fell over the observers in the station. Eli felt a chill of anticipation. Something told him this arrival was not ordinary. The hatch opened and a figure descended gracefully. Eli's breath caught. She was taller than most humans, her movements fluid and precise, but what made her stand out was her presence. She wore a ceremonial outfit of her people, shimmering fabrics woven with metallic threads that shifted color as she moved. Her eyes glowed faintly, a color he had no name for, and her gaze swept the room like a laser, assessing every detail. She was a princess, or at least her aura spoke of rank. The crowd parted instinctively as she stepped into the chamber. Eli felt an unexpected pull of curiosity. He had heard stories of her species, the Virelians, known for their psychic abilities, their strict codes, and their reputation for dismissing humans as primitive. And yet here she was, walking toward him. "You are Eli," she said. Her voice was calm but carried authority. It resonated in his mind more than in his ears, subtle waves of command that left him instinctively upright. "I have heard of your work." Then her gaze landed on his forearm, on the tattoo that wrapped around it like a map. It was an unusual design, not the typical interstellar symbols. The tattoo depicted humans overcoming challenges through ingenuity. Tiny scenes showed humans building machines, outsmarting predators, solving problems that seemed impossible. The images intertwined with geometric patterns and lines that hinted at mathematical sequences. Eli had designed it himself, as a personal reminder that humanity could adapt, survive, and thrive. The princess's eyes lingered on the tattoo longer than expected. Her expression shifted slightly, an almost imperceptible pause. Eli noticed it, and his heart skipped. "You are bold to wear this," she said finally. "Your species claims wisdom it has not yet proven." It was considered dangerous, presumptuous even. Eli's stomach tightened, but curiosity and a spark of excitement replaced fear. "What kind of test?" he asked, trying to mask the trembling in his voice. She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing with intensity. "A puzzle, one that requires intellect, intuition, and understanding of universal patterns. Solve it before me, and you may prove your worth. Fail, and you shall be dismissed as you truly are." Each piece of the puzzle moved in ways that defied human logic, aligned with a language of thought he did not understand. The crowd leaned in, whispering among themselves. Eli studied the puzzle carefully. He had faced challenges before, but this was unlike anything he had encountered. It was designed to test more than skill. It was designed to intimidate. He could feel the pressure mounting, the eyes of humans and aliens alike weighing on him. He remembered the tattoo on his arm. Slowly, he traced his fingers over the lines, the images, the patterns. There was a rhythm there, a story embedded in the curves and angles. He thought of how humans had survived against impossible odds, using intuition and creativity instead of brute force or rigid logic. Taking a deep breath, Eli began to work. He did not approach the puzzle like a typical solver. Instead of forcing the pieces into predefined positions, he observed the movement, letting his mind wander through possibilities. He imagined the puzzle as a story, as a path that told a tale rather than a problem to be conquered. Minutes passed. The crowd murmured, their whispers a low hum around him. The princess watched silently, her eyes never leaving his hands. She seemed intrigued, though she would not show it openly. Eli paused. One section of the puzzle seemed unsolvable. The shapes rotated endlessly, resisting his attempts to align them. He leaned back, scratching his head. Frustration bubbled inside him. Humans could get impatient, make mistakes when under pressure. But Eli forced himself to stay calm. He closed his eyes briefly, imagining the tattoo, the stories it held, the ingenuity it represented. And then he saw it. A pattern hidden within the tattoo mirrored the sequences in the puzzle. It was subtle, almost invisible unless one looked closely, but it aligned perfectly with the shifting shapes. His heart raced. This was human intuition at work, a connection between creativity, observation, and insight that no alien logic alone could achieve. He moved his hands confidently now, placing the puzzle pieces in a sequence that seemed reckless but felt instinctively right. Slowly, the puzzle began to respond. Shapes aligned, sequences completed, symbols lit up one by one, forming a coherent design. The crowd gasped audibly. The princess's eyes widened slightly, and for the first time, Eli saw surprise on her face. She had not expected a human to solve it in this way, to approach it with imagination rather than strict logic. As the final piece clicked into place, a soft glow emanated from the puzzle. Eli stepped back, breathing heavily but smiling. He had done it not by following alien rules, but by trusting human ingenuity. The princess studied him in silence, then inclined her head. "Impressive," she said. Her voice carried respect now, tinged with something Eli could not identify, perhaps curiosity, perhaps acknowledgement. "Your species may be underestimated, but today you have shown strength beyond expectation." The crowd erupted in applause, some cheering, others whispering excitedly. Even the alien delegates who had doubted humans before were now watching with renewed interest. Eli could feel the shift in energy, a sense that something important had changed. The princess stepped forward, her gaze softening. "Tell me," she said quietly, "what inspired this tattoo? It is more than decoration. It is a symbol. That's what humans do best." "You have made me pause," she admitted finally. "I came to challenge, to test, to see weakness. Instead, I see potential." A small tattoo on his arm had spoken louder than any words, revealing the essence of humanity to a princess who had thought she understood everything. The morning had started like any other, but now, as he looked at the princess and the crowd around them, Eli felt the weight of something greater than himself. Humanity had just begun to show its true colors, and the universe was watching. The applause faded slowly, replaced by a tense silence. Eli lowered his arms, feeling the weight of the crowd's eyes on him. The Princess Lyra remained still, her gaze fixed on the tattoo on his forearm. Something about the way she looked at him made his skin tingle. It was not anger, not admiration exactly. It was curiosity. And in her culture, curiosity could be far more dangerous than open hostility. "You solved the puzzle in a way I did not expect," Lyra said finally. Her voice was calm, measured, but carried authority. "You rely on intuition, improvisation, human unpredictability. Most of my people would dismiss your methods as chaotic, inefficient, or foolish. Sometimes the best solution is the one that isn't obvious. Humans survive that way, we adapt." The second phase. It will test whether humans can grasp concepts beyond their own experience, whether you can act with awareness of others, without relying on chance or instinct alone. "I accept." The lines, the symbols, the tiny scenes of humans solving impossible problems, they all whispered a single idea: observe, adapt, and create. He began to study the puzzle systematically. Unlike the first one, this was not only geometric, it contained layers of meaning. Certain shapes represented emotions or intentions. Symbols aligned with sequences that reflected decision-making, not just mathematics. The challenge was not just to solve it, but to understand it. Minutes passed. Eli moved slowly, deliberately, sometimes pausing to observe, sometimes closing his eyes to visualize patterns. He began to see connections between the puzzle's sequences and the stories in his tattoo. Each line in the ink seemed to correspond to a principle of human problem-solving: persistence, cooperation, improvisation, and foresight. Lyra watched silently, her expression unreadable. Eli could feel her psychic awareness scanning him, measuring not only his thoughts but his intentions. It was unnerving, but it also pushed him to focus. Humans had faced countless challenges, often with no one watching, yet he had to do this now, under scrutiny from a princess and an entire crowd. He tried a sequence that seemed unlikely, a combination that might fail, but he reminded himself that humans often succeed by trying what others consider impossible. Slowly, the holographic puzzle began to shift. Pieces realigned, symbols illuminated, and new patterns emerged. Eli smiled faintly. He was on the right track, but then came a section that resisted all attempts. It twisted, rotated, and refused to match any sequence he tried. Frustration crept in. The crowd grew tense, some whispering that humans could not succeed twice. Lyra's gaze was intense, measuring, almost challenging him silently. Eli leaned back, thinking. The answer would not come from brute force or logic alone. He closed his eyes and recalled the moments in his life when humans had succeeded against impossible odds. He remembered building a water filtration system during a station outage, improvising tools to fix a malfunctioning reactor, designing a tattoo that told the story of human resilience. And then it came to him. The solution was not about forcing the puzzle to obey alien logic. It was about understanding the puzzle's story, the intention behind it. Humans thrived by connecting dots others did not notice, by imagining possibilities beyond immediate evidence. The puzzle reflected this principle. He adjusted the pieces according to sequences he had visualized, moving slowly but confidently. The puzzle responded, symbols aligning, geometric shapes settling into harmony. A soft hum filled the chamber as the holographic puzzle began to glow. The crowd leaned forward, watching in astonishment. Lyra's expression shifted. For the first time, she looked genuinely impressed. Her glowing eyes softened, and she took a small step closer. "You approach challenges in ways my people would never consider," she said. "You do not merely solve problems, you understand them." The puzzle completed itself, not perfectly, but in a manner that reflected human ingenuity, creativity, and insight. The crowd erupted into applause. Aliens murmured in disbelief. Humans cheered quietly, proud to see one of their own succeeding where others had doubted. Eli stepped back, breathing heavily, feeling a surge of satisfaction. Lyra studied him for a long moment, then extended her hand. "You have done well, Eli. You have shown that humans possess qualities we have overlooked. You see connections where we see separation. You take risks where we see danger. You persist where we see futility. That is remarkable. I think humans surprise even themselves sometimes. Yet today, we witness not only their intellect, but their spirit. Perhaps it is time to reconsider our assumptions." She studied the tattoo once more, then spoke softly. "Tell me about these images. Each one represents a story. Together, they show a pattern, how humans face the impossible and often succeed. I never thought my tattoo would be part of an interstellar challenge. We find solutions where others see obstacles. The challenge had begun as a test, but it had become a bridge of understanding. As he watched Lyra turn and move toward the docking bay, Eli realized something important. The galaxy was vast, filled with beings who doubted humans, who saw them as weak or primitive. Yet moments like this, moments where human creativity, courage, and intuition shone, were powerful. They could reshape opinions, open doors, and forge alliances. And it all began with a tattoo, a simple symbol of what humans could do when faced with the impossible. He flexed his arm, tracing the lines of the design with his fingers. The tattoo had guided him once more, not just as art, but as a reminder of human ingenuity and resilience. The puzzle, the princess, the crowd, they were part of a larger story, a story that he and humanity were only beginning to write. Eli knew that this was not the end of the challenges. Lyra had more tests planned, more lessons to teach, and perhaps more opportunities to surprise her. But for now, he had made his mark. Not just on the puzzle, not just on the princess, but on the perception of humanity itself. And as he looked out at the orbital colony, the ships, and the stars beyond, Eli felt a surge of hope and determination. Humans could thrive anywhere, even in a galaxy that underestimated them. They could survive, adapt, and shine in ways others could not imagine. The morning had started like any other. Now it had become a turning point. Eli smiled, knowing that the galaxy had just received a small but powerful demonstration. Never underestimate the human spirit. After the excitement of the puzzles had settled, Eli found it hard to sleep. His mind kept replaying the events of the day, the challenge, the crowd, and most of all, the way Princess Lyra had paused when she saw his tattoo. He had expected some recognition, but not this level of curiosity. Humans were seldom noticed for anything beyond their physical strength or ingenuity in simple tasks. And yet here was an alien princess, studying him with an intensity he had never encountered. The orbital colony was quiet in the early hours. the hum of machinery and distant ships the only sound. Eli sat by the window, staring at the blackness of space. The stars stretched endlessly, reminding him of how small humans were in the galaxy, and yet somehow that smallness was also a strength. Humans were unpredictable, capable of improvisation in ways other species could not imagine. He traced his tattoo slowly, feeling the lines that told stories of survival and creativity. Somehow they had guided him today, and he had no doubt they would guide him again. A chime from the docking bay alert broke the silence. Eli's heart skipped. Visitors rarely came this early, and he was not expecting anyone. He moved toward the bay and saw a small shuttle docking, a craft that matched the sleek elegance of Lyra's. The door opened and she stepped out, her presence commanding even in the soft lights of early orbit. "You are awake," she said, her voice calm, almost serene. "Good, there is no time to waste. You have shown skill and insight. Now we will see if you can understand broader consequences, if your creativity can extend beyond the immediate challenge." Shapes twisted in 3 dimensions, floating and rotating, connected by shimmering lines that pulsed with light. Symbols shifted constantly, forming sequences that seemed alive. Eli could see immediately that this challenge was designed to test not only intellect but perception, foresight, and decision-making under pressure. "Your species often acts without considering the wider impact," Lyra said. "You improvise, you adapt, but can you predict how one action affects another? This puzzle will test that. Solve it, and you will demonstrate human wisdom alongside ingenuity." Unlike the previous puzzle, which required intuition and pattern recognition, this one demanded understanding. It was dynamic, interactive. Each change in one part affected other sections unpredictably. The key, he realized, would not be in forcing the pieces into place, but in observing how each movement influenced the whole. He began carefully, rotating one shape at a time, noting its effects. Some sequences caused unintended reactions, forcing him to reconsider. He noticed patterns repeating, subtle alignments that reminded him of his tattoo, the curves and lines representing cause and effect, the small details building toward a larger story. He traced his forearm, letting the ink guide his thoughts. Lyra watched silently, her glowing eyes focused. Unlike the first challenge, she did not interject. Her silence was heavy, almost a weight pressing on Eli's mind. He felt as though she could see through him into his thought processes, anticipating each decision. It was unnerving but also strangely motivating. Humans thrived under pressure, and he reminded himself of that. Hours seemed to pass in a blur. Eli rotated shapes, connected symbols, and tested sequences, often retracing steps when results went awry. Some sequences were immediately incorrect, collapsing in unexpected ways. Others formed partial patterns, suggesting the right path but not quite completing it. The puzzle seemed alive, responding to his decisions in real time. Frustration crept in. Eli felt sweat forming at his temples. He had faced impossible tasks before, but never one that required so much focus, patience, and foresight simultaneously. He paused, breathing deeply, and reflected on his tattoo again. The stories it told, humans building machines from nothing, solving crises in days, surviving situations others deemed hopeless, reminded him that failure was only temporary if he adapted. Slowly, clarity emerged. Eli began to see the puzzle not as a static problem, but as a living system. Every sequence, every shift of light represented a choice with consequences. The holographic shapes mirrored life itself, small actions influencing larger outcomes. This was not just a puzzle, it was a simulation of cause and effect. And humans, despite being small and seemingly fragile, had learned to navigate such complexities on their own planet countless times. He moved deliberately now, carefully planning each sequence, predicting the ripple effects. Where previous challenges relied on intuition, this one demanded foresight. He imagined the puzzle as a story, each action a line in a narrative. His tattoo, once a personal reminder, became a guide, showing him how humans had thrived by understanding patterns, by connecting details, and by anticipating consequences. Slowly, the puzzle began to respond. Shapes aligned more stably, symbols pulsed in harmony, and sequences that had once failed now created coherent patterns. The crowd, who had returned to observe the challenge, murmured in astonishment. Aliens whispered among themselves, noting how a human could grasp such a complex system so intuitively. Lyra's gaze remained fixed on him, and for the first time, Eli noticed a flicker of something unfamiliar in her eyes, respect, perhaps, or recognition. She spoke softly, almost to herself. The human mind is capable of seeing connections where we see only chaos. He recalled how humans often managed resources under constraints, balancing conflicting priorities. With careful calculation, he adjusted the sequences, letting some imperfections remain to stabilize the larger system. Slowly, piece by piece, the holographic puzzle aligned. Shapes settled into place, symbols pulsing in rhythm, and light spread evenly throughout the construct. The puzzle completed itself, not perfectly by alien standards, but in a way that reflected human understanding, adaptation, and foresight. The crowd erupted in applause. Humans cheered quietly, proud of the accomplishment. Aliens murmured in disbelief, their assumptions challenged. Lyra stepped forward, her expression unreadable, then finally spoke. "You have done more than solve the puzzle," she said. "You have demonstrated understanding, insight, wisdom. These are qualities my people value but often overlook in humans. You acted with foresight, considered consequences, and balanced complexity. That is remarkable. I think humans often succeed because we look beyond what is obvious. We imagine possibilities others ignore." "Tell me," she said quietly, "how did this tattoo guide you? It seems more than art. It seems alive with your thought process." "When I look at it, I remember how humans overcome obstacles, sometimes by thinking differently, sometimes by taking risks others would not consider. It reminded me today to trust not only logic but intuition and foresight. Most of my people rely solely on formal instruction, formulas, and rigid logic. You blend creativity, instinct, and understanding. That is rare. This design has made me reconsider many assumptions about your species. Humans are not merely adaptable or strong. You are imaginative, resourceful, and capable of understanding far more than we give you credit for. For too long, humans had been underestimated, dismissed as weak or primitive. Yet here was proof that they could navigate challenges no alien had imagined, using qualities that were uniquely their own. "You have made me pause again," Lyra admitted. "Not because you have one, but because you have shown perspective, insight, humanity. I think humans surprise even themselves sometimes." Eli felt a connection, not just with Lyra, but with the larger galaxy. Today had been a test, a challenge, and a lesson all at once. Humans had shown ingenuity, foresight, and creativity, and the universe had taken notice. Eli flexed his arm, tracing the tattoo once more. The lines seemed to pulse under his fingers, guiding him, reminding him of the stories embedded within. They were more than ink. They were a testament to human resilience. Lyra stepped back toward the docking bay, her posture formal but less rigid than before. "Rest now, human. There will be more challenges ahead, but know this, you have proven that your species possesses qualities many overlook. That is the first step toward understanding one another." The puzzles were not merely games, they were lessons, tests of humanity itself. And humans, despite being underestimated, had the power to surprise, endure, and thrive in ways no one had yet imagined. For Eli, the tattoo had once again proved its worth. It was a map of ingenuity, a guide to creativity, and a symbol of the human spirit. And as the stars shone outside the orbital colony, he felt ready for whatever challenges awaited. Humanity had made its mark once more, quietly, brilliantly, and irrevocably. The following day, Eli woke to the hum of the orbital colony, sunlight streaming through the reinforced glass panels. The previous challenges had left him exhilarated but exhausted. He flexed his arm, tracing the familiar lines of his tattoo, feeling the stories etched in ink. Every scene reminded him that humans could adapt, survive, and succeed where others might fail. Yet he knew the journey was far from over. Princess Lyra had hinted at more trials, and he had learned to expect the unexpected with her. The docking bay alert chimed again, sharp and insistent. Eli rose quickly, pulling on his jacket and moving toward the bay. Outside, Lyra's sleek shuttle hovered, waiting. She stepped out, her posture regal, her glowing eyes scanning the station with the precision of someone who saw far more than ordinary observers could. "You are punctual," she said. Her tone was calm but carried the weight of authority. "Good. Time is critical today. Your next challenge will test not only intellect and foresight, but also human endurance and adaptability under changing conditions." They moved through corridors that twisted and expanded in ways he had not noticed before, passing areas of the station reserved for alien delegates and sensitive equipment. Finally, they arrived in a large chamber. At first glance, it seemed empty, but Eli could see that the floor was a complex grid of glowing tiles, shifting and rearranging as he stepped closer. Holographic symbols hovered above the surface, constantly changing, forming patterns that were difficult to comprehend. This challenge, Lyra explained, is dynamic. You will need to move, adapt, and solve problems in real time. The environment itself will change as you interact with it. Think of it as a simulation of chaos, a test of human flexibility and ingenuity. It was a living system, demanding that he think, observe, and respond simultaneously. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. As he moved, tiles lit up in new sequences. Some glowed steadily, others flickered, signaling that his actions had ripple effects. Eli realized that the key was to anticipate these effects, to predict how one choice would influence the next. His tattoo seemed to guide him, each line and symbol reminding him of human resilience, creativity, and adaptability. Minutes passed, then hours, though Eli lost track of time. He moved carefully, testing sequences, adjusting his steps, sometimes retreating to avoid triggering negative effects. The chamber responded to every decision, shifting the environment constantly. At one point, a section of tiles rose slightly, forming a low barrier. Eli had to find a way to navigate it without breaking the sequence. He paused, considering his options, then remembered how humans often overcame physical obstacles with ingenuity. He used the environment itself, jumping and stepping strategically, creating a path that allowed him to continue without disrupting the sequence. Lyra watched silently, her glowing eyes fixed on him. Unlike the previous challenges, she said little, allowing him to act and observe. Eli felt the pressure, knowing that every choice mattered. Humans often thrived under such circumstances, turning limitations into opportunities. He drew on that strength, moving with purpose, testing his ideas and learning from each mistake. One section of the chamber presented a particularly difficult problem. The tiles shifted unpredictably, forming patterns that seemed impossible to navigate. Eli paused, analyzing the sequences. Then he noticed a subtle rhythm, a pattern that repeated faintly beneath the surface chaos. It reminded him of the tattoo, the hidden order within complexity, the way small details connected to create a larger system. Using this insight, he adjusted his movements, timing each step with the rhythm he perceived. The tiles responded, forming a coherent path through the chaos. Eli moved forward, feeling a surge of confidence. The environment was challenging, unpredictable, but not impossible. Human intuition, observation, and creativity were powerful tools when applied carefully. As he progressed, new elements appeared. Holographic obstacles rose, requiring him to react quickly. Symbols hovered in the air, their meanings unclear at first, but Eli began to interpret them through patterns he recognized from his tattoo and experience. Some symbols represented consequences, others rewards. He learned to anticipate, to act decisively, and to trust his instincts. The chamber grew more complex with each step. Sections shifted dramatically, forcing him to improvise. At one point, a series of tiles collapsed underfoot, but Eli leaped to safety, landing on stable tiles while maintaining the sequence. The crowd, observing through transparent walls, gasped in astonishment. Aliens murmured among themselves, impressed by human agility and problem-solving under pressure. Lyra's expression was unreadable, yet Eli sensed approval in the subtle movements of her posture. She spoke only once during the challenge. "Humans act with adaptability that is both reckless and brilliant," she said. "You move where others hesitate, think where others follow. That is the essence of your species." He knew the challenge was not over. The chamber continued to shift, testing endurance as well as intellect. Each step required observation, decision-making, and physical coordination. The holographic symbols provided clues, but their meaning changed depending on his actions. It was a test of the human ability to adapt in real time. Hours passed in a blur of motion, thought, and observation. Eli's arms ached, his legs burned, yet he pressed on. The tattoo on his arm seemed to pulse with energy, guiding him, reminding him of human stories of survival and invention. He thought of the humans who had built civilizations in harsh environments, who had solved problems through creativity and cooperation. He drew strength from those stories, applying them to the challenge before him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Eli reached the final section. The tiles formed a complex sequence that seemed impossible at first glance. He paused, taking a deep breath, and visualized the entire chamber as a system. Each movement had consequences, each step created reactions. By understanding the connections, he could navigate the final sequence successfully. He moved carefully, one step at a time, aligning the tiles and interpreting the symbols. The environment responded, stabilizing as he progressed. Finally, he reached the center of the chamber where a holographic orb hovered. As he touched it, the entire chamber lit up in harmony. Tiles, symbols, and patterns aligned perfectly, forming a coherent system that reflected human adaptability, intelligence, and creativity. The crowd erupted in applause. Humans cheered quietly, proud of the achievement. Aliens whispered among themselves, impressed by the demonstration of human resilience and ingenuity. Eli stood in the center, breathing heavily, sweat dripping from his forehead, yet feeling a surge of triumph. Lyra stepped forward, her expression softer than before. "You have done more than navigate chaos," she said. "You have demonstrated endurance, insight, and adaptability. Humans often face impossible conditions and succeed through creativity and perseverance. Today, you have shown these qualities vividly. It reflects the human spirit, resilient, creative, adaptable. It has guided you well. Humans are often underestimated, yet you consistently show strength, creativity, and wisdom beyond what many expect. You make me pause, not out of hesitation, but out of acknowledgement. And perhaps that is why your species endures, despite challenges that would overwhelm others. You act with foresight, creativity, and resilience. That is remarkable." Today had been more than a test. It had been a demonstration of what humans could do, a lesson in ingenuity and adaptability. Eli flexed his arm, tracing the tattoo once more. The lines seemed to glow faintly under his fingers, guiding him, reminding him of the stories embedded within. They were more than ink. They were a testament to human resourcefulness. Lyra stepped back toward her shuttle, her posture formal but less rigid than before. "Rest now, human. More challenges await, but today you have proven qualities many species underestimate. That is the first step toward broader understanding." The galaxy was vast, full of beings who underestimated humans, yet moments like this proved that their creativity, endurance, and ingenuity could shine brighter than many expected. He returned to his studio, exhausted but exhilarated. The challenges had tested not only his mind but his body and spirit. The tattoo had guided him once more, serving as a reminder of human resilience, creativity, and adaptability. The stars outside the orbital colony seemed brighter now, reflecting the infinite possibilities awaiting humanity. Eli knew that the journey was far from over. Lyra's challenges were designed to teach, test, and reveal. Humans, despite being small in the vast galaxy, had the power to endure, innovate, and thrive. And Eli, with his tattoo and his mind, was a living symbol of that potential. The day had been exhausting, intense, and transformative. Humans had made their mark again, quietly but unmistakably. And as he prepared for whatever lay ahead, Eli felt ready. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for too long, and it was time to show what they were truly capable of. The orbital colony was quieter than usual that morning, but the tension in the air was unmistakable. Eli could feel it the moment he stepped into the docking bay. Today was different. The challenges had pushed him to the limits of his intellect, endurance, and adaptability. But something told him that the final phase, the one Lyra had hinted at all along, would test him in ways he had not yet imagined. Princess Lyra was waiting by her shuttle, her presence as commanding as ever. Her glowing eyes reflected the soft light of the station, and Eli could sense a subtle shift in her demeanor. Today, there was curiosity, respect, and perhaps even something like anticipation. She nodded to him as he approached. "You are ready," she said. Her voice was calm but carried authority. "The final challenge is not a puzzle, nor a test of speed or agility alone. It is a test of leadership, creativity, and the ability to inspire others. You must navigate a situation that requires coordination, judgment, and courage. Success will not be measured by your own performance alone, but by the impact you have on those around you." Let's begin. Environmental systems were failing, supply routes were blocked, and inhabitants, humans, aliens, and hybrids, were struggling to survive. "This is the final phase," Lyra explained. "The scenario is complex and evolving. You will have limited resources, limited time, and multiple variables to consider. You must act decisively, coordinate efforts, and solve problems that have cascading consequences. Think like a leader, act like a human, and inspire others to achieve what seems impossible." He realized immediately that improvisation, observation, and human ingenuity, his tattoo, his mind, his experiences, would be vital. He activated a command panel and began organizing the resources available. Drones hovered nearby, ready to assist, and holographic representations of colony inhabitants moved according to his instructions. Eli treated the simulation seriously, giving orders, anticipating problems, and adjusting strategies as conditions changed. The environment shifted constantly. A simulated storm damaged part of the colony's power grid, threatening life support systems. Eli redirected drones to repair critical components while coordinating human and alien workers to stabilize other areas. At first, progress was slow. Mistakes happened, sequences failed, and systems threatened to collapse. But Eli remained focused, recalling lessons from previous challenges. Patience, observation, and adaptation were key. He noticed patterns in the chaos, subtle sequences that mirrored the stories in his tattoo. Humans had survived disasters before by noticing small details, improvising solutions, and inspiring collaboration. He applied the same principles here. When a section of the colony was on the brink of collapse, he instructed workers to improvise solutions, combining tools and materials in ways the simulation had not anticipated. Slowly, stability returned. Lyra watched silently, her glowing eyes reflecting every decision he made. She said little, allowing him to act independently. Eli could feel her psychic awareness probing the simulation, assessing his judgment, adaptability, and leadership qualities. Her silence was both pressure and validation. Humans thrived under challenge, and Eli drew strength from that. Minutes turned into hours. Eli moved rapidly, but deliberately, making decisions that balanced immediate needs with long-term consequences. He rerouted power, repaired structural failures, and coordinated efforts across multiple teams. Each success built momentum, inspiring the simulated inhabitants to act efficiently. One critical moment arrived when a supply conduit was about to fail, threatening food and medical supplies for a large section of the colony. Eli had to decide quickly: attempt a risky repair using limited resources or reroute supplies, potentially delaying essential aid. He paused, recalling the human stories represented in his tattoo, moments when risk and improvisation had saved lives. He chose the repair, giving clear instructions to drones and workers. The sequence required precise timing and coordination. One misstep would have caused failure. Eli focused, guiding each movement, anticipating consequences and adapting in real time. Slowly, the conduit stabilized and the supply flow resumed. Relief spread through the simulated colony, and Eli felt a surge of pride. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter, her expression softening. You do more than react. You anticipate, plan, and inspire. Humans possess qualities we rarely acknowledge: creativity, courage, and the ability to unite others toward a common goal. You demonstrate these now. The simulation continued to evolve, presenting new problems: structural failures, environmental hazards, and conflicts among simulated inhabitants. Each obstacle required him to think strategically, prioritize tasks, and make decisions that balanced risk and reward. At one point, a section of the simulation threatened to collapse entirely. Eli could see that if he failed to act quickly, the consequences would ripple throughout the colony. He called on all available resources, improvising solutions, coordinating teams, and using the simulation's tools in ways they were not intended. Step by step, he stabilized the section, earning the confidence of the simulated inhabitants and demonstrating leadership under pressure. Hours passed in a blur of decision-making, problem-solving, and coordination. Eli's focus never wavered. He relied on observation, logic, intuition, and the lessons embedded in his tattoo. He moved through the simulation as if he were both participant and strategist, guiding the inhabitants toward stability and efficiency. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the simulation reached equilibrium. The colony was stabilized, supply routes restored, environmental systems functioning, and inhabitants safe. Eli stepped back, breathing heavily, feeling both exhaustion and exhilaration. He had not only navigated chaos, but had inspired order, demonstrated leadership, and solved complex problems through ingenuity and coordination. The crowd watching through the transparent walls erupted in applause. Humans cheered quietly, proud to see one of their own succeed on such a scale. Aliens whispered among themselves, astonished by the demonstration of human resilience, intelligence, and leadership. Eli's heart swelled. Lyra approached him, her expression a mixture of pride, admiration, and respect. "You have done more than any human has been expected to do," she said. "You have demonstrated intellect, foresight, endurance, and leadership. You act decisively, inspire others, and solve problems creatively. Your species is often underestimated, yet today you have proven that perception false." We succeed by seeing connections others miss, by adapting, and by persisting. We learn from failures and find solutions when others expect none. It made me pause and reconsider everything I assumed about your species. The tattoo, the puzzles, and the final simulation had revealed the essence of what humans could achieve. You have made me reconsider many things about your species, Lyra said softly. Humans are clever, resourceful, and adaptable. You surprise us, inspire us, and lead us in ways few expect. Today, you have shown that humanity's potential is far greater than we imagined. Humanity deserves recognition, respect, and opportunity. I see now that your ingenuity, courage, and creativity are qualities worth embracing, not dismissing. The message was clear. Humans could thrive in any situation, succeed where others doubted, and inspire allies through creativity and leadership. Eli felt a sense of triumph, not for himself, but for humanity. The journey had begun with a tattoo, a symbol of human resilience and ingenuity. It had carried him through puzzles, dynamic challenges, and finally, leadership under pressure. Every step had demonstrated the strength, creativity, and adaptability of his species. Lyra extended her hand, a gesture of partnership. Eli, your success is not just personal, it represents humanity's spirit. Let this be the first step toward a future where humans and my people work together, learn from each other, and face the galaxy as allies. Together, we can face challenges others cannot even imagine. They were a testament to the human spirit, a symbol of creativity, resilience, and ingenuity that had carried him through every challenge. Lyra turned to him, her glowing eyes reflecting admiration. You have made me pause, Eli, not out of hesitation, but in recognition. Humans are extraordinary in ways I had not understood. Today, you have changed perceptions, not just for yourself, but for your species. The challenges, the puzzles, the simulations, they were all steps toward a larger understanding, that humans, despite being underestimated, could thrive, inspire, and lead. The orbital colony continued its hum of activity, ships gliding past the windows, light reflecting off metal surfaces. Eli stood tall, ready for whatever adventures awaited next. The galaxy had seen a glimpse of human capability, and the story of ingenuity, resilience, and creativity was only beginning. Humans were small, underestimated, and often dismissed. But through insight, adaptation, and courage, they had made their mark. And Eli, with his tattoo, his mind, and his spirit, had shown the universe exactly what that meant. The stars outside the colony sparkled with possibility, and Eli knew that humanity's journey among them had only just begun. The galaxy would never underestimate humans again.